Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, Highlift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Well, hello, and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. And hey, I know I always say I'm excited, but I'm really excited today for two reasons. One is this is actually my 50th episode. Now, I started putting out these podcasts about 2 years ago. And if you told me I'd ever get to 50 episodes, I'd say you're crazy. So I just feel very blessed that I've been able to do this, hopefully provide some great content, and probably more importantly, just meet some great people. And you know, today's guest, I'm really excited about because I've been following some of his stuff, especially on social media. He was introduced to me by one of my previous guests, Barrett Smith. So I'm just going to get right into it with Clay Hoberecht, right?
Yes, Clay Hoberecht.
Okay, I got it right. So Clay, Clay's he's the owner of Best Body Shop in Wichita, Kansas. And I think what I like best about Clay, and if you've been following the podcast, you know I have a tendency to like disruptors. And I think, you know, disruption, being uncomfortable is a good thing. It helps us to progress. And especially in the collision repair industry, it's changing so fast that I think we need disruptors to help kind of shake, especially the independent family-owned shops, you know, shake them up a little bit to get them to understand that, hey, we need to change and evolve. So Clay started his body shop about 8 years ago, I would say, with a bit of nativity. Is that right, Clay?
Oh, that's being very kind.
Okay. So, and he's come to realize some of the problems in the industry, and it just didn't sit right with him. And I think that's the thing I appreciate with him most is he allows his integrity to guide how he conducts his business. And I think to me, that's something that touches my heart. You know, he decided to put people in front of profit, and he's revolutionizing the way that he's doing business and how a number of other shops in the industry are doing business. So, you know, he's an owner that strives to look out not only for his customers, but his family. So I'm really excited to learn more about Clay. So Clay, I want to welcome you to Your Business, Your Life.
Well, awesome. Thank you for having me on, Matt. And I appreciate the opportunity. You know, you talk about being naive, you know, Barrett Smith, your last guest, his actual introduction to me was, hey, I've been watching a lot of your stuff, and you're an idiot with a great heart. And he says, hey man, now if you actually got to know what you're talking about and got educated, you could be effective for your clients. And I'll never forget, because Barrett sent me several emails, and I just ignored his emails. I didn't know who he was, but he knew exactly what would get my attention, and that you're an idiot with a great heart. Well, you got my attention. What do you need?
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
And it's funny to me. It just, and it kind of blows my mind how God puts the right people in front of us when we need them. You know, and I think that's something that's really important. They seem to always just kind of show up at that time that we need them.
Yeah, I would not be in the collision repair business if I didn't meet Barrett. You know, looking back, if you would tell me back then when I met Barrett that life could be as good as it is now, and I could control my business and own my business without it running me, and have solutions for all the challenges and problems that we run into on a daily basis as a collision repair business, I would tell you that it's impossible. And what we're experiencing today is incredible. But I was ready to be out. I was ready. And Barrett talks about it all the time, that the majority of his clients call him as a last ditch effort, almost, you know, in tears, like either this is going to work or I'm going to have to change, you know, career paths. And I was pretty close to that when I met with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something. So could you tell us a little bit about like your previous history before you met Barrett, how you got into the business, and then what were these challenges? What were the things that were really just kind of driving you nuts, driving you to possibly exit the industry?
Sure. So much like a lot of collision repair business owners, I got into the industry as a technician.
Okay.
You know, I've been in the industry now for almost 20 years. And I started out as just sweeping floors and cleaning cars and worked my way up to, I fell in love with metal. I mean, I remember the first time working on hot rods and learning metal from, from an older guy that was a body guy for years. And he taught me how to use a torch and how to make, quarter panels and stuff. That really got my hook. I mean, that hooked me. Fast forward, I worked out of a garage for many, many years. I always had a scratch that couldn't get itched. And I didn't know what it was until I started my own thing. And then that scratch got itched. And I found out that I'm an entrepreneur, that I was supposed to own my own business. Right. And that's 8 years ago, I started Best Body Shop. And that was, I don't even know if you can really call it a shop at that time. It was a 2,700 square foot building with no running water, no bathroom.
Right.
I didn't even have a compressor. The landlord that owned the property let me borrow his compressor. I didn't have a paint booth. Luckily, and you talk about, God putting things in your position or putting it in front of you. You could call it luck, you could call it being blessed. It just so happened that the building next door had a paint booth in the back that they didn't use. And so I would borrow their paint booth every day.
Right.
And it was an absolute grind, wake up at, get to work at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, fill 5-gallon buckets of water because we didn't have running water, and and have all your prepping and everything set up towards your back door so that when the next door opens up at 8 or 9, you can run over there, get all your painting done by 5, and then work the rest of the night. Right. It was 20-hour days for many years on end. And I think somewhere in between that, there was an awakening to how upside down and inside out our industry is. Right. One of those things that woke me up is when an insurance company or an insurance adjuster walked out of my shop, and he pointed at me and he winked and he goes, "Don't tell him about that." And he wanted me to keep it a secret what we were doing to the customer's car. Right. And I just, that bugged me. At the time, I didn't know we were doing anything wrong. I really thought that we were doing everything right. Yeah. I called that customer and said, "Hey, and it was involving an aftermarket part." Right. And the customer just put his foot down and says, "No, I don't want an aftermarket part." And that was the first time that I ever felt the wrath of an insurance company that essentially made me make a decision on who I was serving. They got really angry that I even told the customer that. Yeah. And long story short, I made the decision right then and there that I'm only going to serve, you can't serve two masters. Right. And I made the decision that the customer is the master. And from there, I almost got painted as the anti-insurance guy. And the truth was I was just a pro-consumer guy. Right. And what I found in our industry is that if you're pro-consumer, that makes you an enemy of the majority of the insurance companies that are out there. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was a tough transition. During that whole time, social media became important. Right. I listened to a video from Grant Cardone, and I listened to some videos from Gary Vaynerchuk that talked about how social media is important for the business, and it convicted me to make some changes. I was adamantly anti-social media. I was old school. Right. And so I started utilizing social media. And when I found the problems in our industry and no one was willing to talk about them, I utilized social media as a platform to speak about these things. Right. And that really grew a large following. And that's how I met Barrett. But Barrett, at that time, because I was uneducated, I was just a frustrated, angry body shop owner that wanted to do the right thing, that thought that there was a different way to do things, but I had no idea how to do it. And I was making all these super angry videos about insurance companies. I was, it was just an angry guy that had no solutions. Right. And that's where Barrett came in, and he goes, "Hey, this is kind of what my company is all about, is I help people like you." And I remember, we don't, hold hands and dance into the sunset after that. I remember the next question after he told me, that he has this company. I said, "Okay, well, I'll hire you." And he goes, "Well, it's not that easy. Let me ask you some questions." And he started to ask me about the tools and equipment that I had, and come to find out that I didn't have the majority of the tools and equipment that it takes to repair cars correctly. So he went, "You're part of the problem too."
Lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so you call me, tell me I'm an idiot, tell me I need to get educated, tell me that you can educate me, but I don't have the tools and equipment. Thanks, dude. And he just he essentially said, you can't hire me because I'm not going to take money that should be spent on tools and equipment, as a payment.
Okay.
And then he turned around and he says, but I love what you're doing and I'll work something out with you. And he ended up working with me, I think for about, it was like a year, 9 months to a year. And he worked for me. He did consulting with me for free.
Oh, wow.
He's probably gonna slap my hand for saying that.
Yeah. I'm talking to him tomorrow, so let's keep this on the low key. All right. So
yeah. But no, and he's okay with the story. I've told it many times because what it was is he was sold out that I was gonna adapt to it and fix. And so the agreement that we had, as long as I was buying the tools and equipment, the training that I needed, that he would help me through the process. Now, he never let me off the hook, though. Every single time I got off the phone with him, he'd remind me his hourly rate and how much that call would have cost.
Okay. Okay.
Like, thanks, Barrett. I appreciate that.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
But I finally, in one of those consultation calls, he started asking about the tools. Hey, do you have the spot resistance welder? Do you have the 3D measuring system? Do you have the scan tools? And when I was able to say yes, he says, awesome. You can go ahead and start paying me now.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, send me an invoice.
Right. Exactly. Yep. He didn't double it up just to make up. So
I don't know. It would be worth it even if you did.
I get it. My story is very similar to yours, except it's in the financial service industry because, I got involved and I'm thinking that I'm doing the right thing for the client. And then I read the book, The Big Short. And it was about the what happened in 2008. And I went, holy crap. I'm like, I'm just a glorified salesman. And all I'm doing is all they care about is me making money for them. And it wasn't until I met my coach that I could transform my business. So I relate to your story completely.
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about 2008 because Grant Cardone, that's where he made his big break is 2008.
Right.
When Lehman Brothers collapsed and the whole financial sector was falling apart, he differentiated himself by running towards, the collapse instead of running away from it.
Right.
And that's actually what we did during the Corona situation when the very first beginning, a couple of years ago when Corona came out and everyone was real. I mean, we saw just body shops shutting down all over the place and everyone, it was a huge upset. Yep. We actually took an opportunity because I studied 2008 really, I studied a lot. And I remember when the Corona thing hit the next day, me making phone calls to some of the advisors that I had. And I said, man, this seems like 2008. Am I seeing things correctly? Mm-hmm. And they said yes. And I said, well, then while everyone's running away, while everyone's contracting, should we push all in? And that's what we did. We ended up remodeling the entire shop, putting all new equipment in. And we, 40 days afterwards, we were able to open a shop back up that was brand new.
Right.
Versus a lot of businesses that were coming back, just trying to get things started back up, It positioned us extremely well, and we've actually noticed our finances. Our this year is going to be significantly better because of the decisions we made back then.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah, it's funny. There's always in adversity, there's always opportunity, and I think I know in 2008 because I was brand new in the business. I started like about 2006, and all of a sudden it was like. This happened and I'm still trying to build a book of business. So I'm calling people and I was the only one calling them because every other advisor out there was scared. They were hiding under their desk. And so I think you're so right. There's opportunity everywhere. You made a comment when we talked yesterday. I thought you said, if Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, Pat Lencioni, and Dave Ramsey had a baby, you would be the baby child, right?
Without a shadow of a doubt, those are the influences of the foundation of our business and the core values that we have here.
And, and that was something that's really impressed me. I mean, you talk about this idea of creating a culture that's humble, hungry, and smart. And I wanted you to expound a little bit about that, what that means, not only just for your customers, but more importantly for your employees, because I think, in being a leader, that's where we need to take accountability and help to uplift the team. So I want you to talk a little bit about that philosophy and that culture.
Well, I mean, a perfect example is like, this morning we have a morning meeting, and every morning we have a production meeting, and there's I think 16 to 18 of us that are involved in that meeting.
Right.
And we go around and we talk. And one of the things that we do is like, what's your temperature? And so we go from person to person. It's 1 to 10, and oh, I'm a 9, I'm a 7. And when you start getting into the 6s, everyone starts to go, what's going on? Are you okay? And well, this morning was a perfect example. We had somebody that said he was a 7, and then we get almost done with the meeting, and he raises his hand and he goes, I got to be honest with you guys. I lied. I'm at a 6, and I just didn't want to talk about it. And I don't think it's right for me to be dishonest to the team. And I'm doing a lot better now that I'm motivated. I had some things that demotivated me this morning from the house, but now that I'm here, I'm at an 8. I'm excited. But it's creating a culture that kind of conversation can not just survive, but actually thrive.
Right.
I think that in general business practice, period, you're seeing a lot of behaviors that are not conducive to high levels of success. Mm-hmm. And that behavior is actually rewarded instead of negated.
Yep.
And so it really is breaking down the walls between life and work. Like the work-life balance it's the most ridiculous thing that could ever come out of somebody's mouth.
Exactly.
The saying, leave your problems at the door. Are you asking for your employees to be liars then, the 8 hours that they're at your shop, and really being able to open an opportunity for a team to be able to raise their hand and say, I made a mistake, or I don't know what I'm doing. And that's what Patrick Lencioni talks about all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we have here, or at least that's what we're consistently working on. It's without a shadow of a doubt, the hardest thing that we've ever done. Yeah. If everyone, in the collision repair business, if you're listening to this and you're thinking that the insurance world is the hardest thing you're going to overcome, try building a culture that's based in love and based in, we have the humble, hungry, smart is kind of the things that if something's going wrong, we know something's wrong in one of those 3 areas.
Right.
And that's out of 5 dysfunctions of a team with Patrick Lencioni and
right.
The ideal team player. And so we do all kinds of stuff in the shop in our business that is conducive to consistently growing that culture. We read a book a month, and we have book reviews every Tuesday and Thursday. And we live and die on this particular store. Mm-hmm. In fact, we've actually lost high level employees for cultural reasons. We've had painters that came in that showed up on time, worked really hard, were incredible at their job, didn't want to participate in being humble, hungry, and smart, didn't want to be transparent, vulnerable, honest, really just wanted to come in, clock in, kick ass, and clock out.
Right. And
we actually, because we had to make that decision of, well, is this are we really going to be all about this or not? And because we made the decision that the culture is the most important thing here, there wasn't a fit for that, for those kind of people in our shop.
Right.
It was challenging.
Those are tough decisions, man. But I really think, and it doesn't matter if you're in the collision industry, no matter what industry you're in, it's so important to develop that culture. Because Lencioni talks about that. We talked a little bit yesterday about this idea of you having conflict, but the foundation of his pyramid is this idea of trust. And, if you have to have productive conflict to be able to progress forward, but if you don't have that foundation of trust, you're screwed. And I think that's something that really impresses me, that it sounds like you may not all be best friends, but you all trust each other, and you're all you've all part of a team, and they understand the ships rise as the water rises, these ships rise.
Yeah. We had a conversation in a morning meeting just the other day, where we all sat down and we have the triangle written on a whiteboard over. We all know the 5 dysfunctions, trust and accountability
Right.
and conflict. And so we're all sitting there and I said, guys, how important is trust in this team? And everyone was like, huge. I mean, everyone's like, oh my God, it's crucial. It's the first thing on the deal.
Right.
And then I said, okay, so what about conflict? And everyone kind of like, yeah. I said, so which one's more important, or the same importance? Okay, then why aren't we conflicting?
Yeah. Wow.
It could be because we don't trust each other and we're afraid to say certain things. So it's those kind of conversations that we have all the time. This morning we had a conversation about, we set a goal Monday and we selected particular cars that were going to be done this week.
Right.
And just like any good plan, you get in the middle of it, you get hit in the face and things change.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed in our team this morning is things changed, but we kind of just glossed over it.
Right.
And I'm in a position now in the business. I'm blessed with a team large enough that I now can take a back seat and almost play referee.
Oh, that's good.
Which
Yeah.
I love.
Right.
I have a general manager that's learning to take over my position, and I have a production manager that's running the shop back there, and we've got a really healthy staff. So I'm able to just kind of oversee and kind of have the 10,000 square foot view.
Yeah.
So I was able to, in the middle of the meeting, kind of step in and I was like, hey guys, if we're not going to hit the goal, does that bug anybody? And everyone's kind of like, kind of sticking their hand up. And I said, so why don't we feel the freedom to be able to be honest about what we're really thinking and communicate that? I said, because here's what it looks like. We ignore it today, hope it goes away. Friday, we miss the goal and we get upset, and then we talk down on each other and we try to find who the fault is. And I said, it's just that's not healthy at all for us.
Right.
And so then the rest of the team was able to kind of speak up and kind of, and the cool thing is I was able to say, hey, listen, I don't want to be the one that does this when I'm gone. I expect you guys to be able to do this by yourselves.
Right.
I was able to say, I looked at the sales, the finance lady and said, hey, you should be able to, you're a part of the team. I looked at the marketing guy and I said, you're part of the team. You guys can speak up. Say, wait a minute. Monday, we talked about this, but today it's changed. Shouldn't we have a deeper conversation about what that means or what that's going to affect?
Right.
Right. So we made the adjustments and it was incredible. We were able to agree and commit to it and move forward.
Uh-huh. No, I think that's, and you know what? And again, I think when we're able to do that, it can be uncomfortable, but I think what it does, it shows the employees that you care.
At the end of the day, none of us would do that in our home.
Right.
If you want a really healthy relationship with your wife, you're not going to lie. You're not going to hold things back. We use a splinter analogy a lot in our shop. Like, not saying something like we did this morning can create a splinter today. And it might not be that big of a deal, but in a week it could inflame into an infection,
Right.
And so these little things that you take care of now are important, because they'll become bigger later. And so we try, and it sounds really weird, especially coming from a body shop, but we really talk about love a lot. Like, there should be a level of love for everyone, and there should be a level of respect, just like you have with your wife or your husband or your kids. There's nothing different in that relationship building than at work, other than it's just not what is normal in society.
Right.
But failing is also pretty normal in society, and I don't want to join that club.
Well, you know what? It's funny. I do this business planning every year with my coach. And, one of the things we do, it's a lot, we spend probably a good third of the time just on our mindsets and like, how are we thinking and what do we need to change in that mindset? Yeah. And one of them was, how do we define failure? And it really revolutionized my thinking when I changed my definition of failure, that I fail when I have not learned something from it. So what that allowed me to do then was to go and risk and take chances and get uncomfortable, because, the only way I would fail is if I didn't lose from it. If it didn't work, okay, well, why didn't this work? Okay, what do I need to adjust? And I think that's a healthy perspective to have, because we have to risk.
3M actually, I did some work with 3M a couple of years ago. We did some they sponsored us with some stuff, and we did some social media, and we had some fun with them. I got to know the company really well.
Mhm.
And 3M has that identical thought process. Is part of the reason why they're so innovative is because they do not punish because of failure. In fact, they encourage failure. They know that some of the most innovative inventions are going to come out of many failures. And a lot of times you look at a lot of the things that they've created, and it's like, well, it was on accident. It was on the way to something that we thought was going to be a success, and it wasn't, but this came out of it.
Right.
It's that mentality to consistently think. Like I tell my guys all the time, I said, if failure, or if success is equals the lack of failure, if success is the lack of failure, then the most successful person is the person that doesn't get out of bed. I
Right.
mean, that's the reality. So I'm excited to fail every day. I had a meeting right before this with my finance lady. She's going through and learning a lot of stuff, and she's in areas that she's never learned before, and she's carrying this burden. And I'm like, you're going to think back at this a year from now, and this is going to be such a smaller problem than you think it is now.
Yeah.
And you should just enjoy going through learning through this.
Right.
It's very similar to goal setting. Everyone thinks that you set goals so you can hit them. The most depressed I've ever felt in life is when I hit a goal.
Yeah.
The fun is the journey to it. That's
Right.
why I personally make my goals every single day, so that I have something new that I'm going after, and they change all the time, you
Right.
know,
Right. Oh yeah, and priorities change all the time too, and so I think that's
100%.
that's a healthy way to look at it. So Clay, I mean, boy, we could go on, but I just want to touch on this real quick. Is with a lot of the changes, the rapid changes that the industry are facing. I want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you're adapting. But even, I mean, I'm sure on a technical end, but also on the people end, what are you doing differently?
Oh my God. This industry is upside down, inside out, and it is an absolute mess. Um, and man, it's hard to pinpoint all the things. I will tell you this, that I believe that running a collision repair business today is 100 times easier than it ever has been, because of the tools, equipment, the training, the education, the technical information. If you want to run a collision repair facility correctly, pull procedures and read them, and make sure that your technicians are utilizing them when repairing cars. It's that simple.
Right.
I talk to body shop owners that have had their shop for 30 years, and they're going, we never had the information or the documentation that we have today.
Wow.
It makes it so much more simple. We used to put on these classes. We put these classes on every once in a while called Get to Know Repair Procedures,
Uh-huh.
where we have people fly in from all over the country that'll come into the shop, and we have a big flat screen in the shop that we pull procedures on, and we'll read through the procedures. And one of the things, Blake Baker used to be one of the technicians that I had hired here, and he'd do the class.
Right.
He would go through and read the procedures, and in a room full of technicians that usually have a pretty large ego, he says, what's missing out of this that I don't see is your opinion. He said,
Wow.
nobody asked, today, the changes that we're seeing in the vehicle today are saving people's lives.
Yes.
The substrates are different. The computer system's different. The restraint systems are different. How the vehicle absorbs energy, controls that energy, tracks that energy.
Right.
I mean, it's all far beyond a hunk of metal with a steel steering wheel and a seat belt, and just crossing your fingers that if you get into a wreck, you're just gonna not chew on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And so today, the cars that we're working on today, the reason why I say it's easier than it ever has been is just the same engineers that made that vehicle unbelievably safe are the same ones that create instructions on how to repair it.
Mm-hmm.
Just follow it. It's not hard.
That's simple. It's that simple, right?
It is. We had an Explorer come in, and it needed rockers, because of rust, and we don't do rust very often, but the customer wanted this car, has sentimental value somehow, and he wants this repaired. And we pull the procedures. Well, the procedures say that the sectioning where you section the rockers in would make the roof have to be removed and the windshield. And we're like, man, it would be so much easier if you just cut it lower down on the rocker. And so we had a meeting about it, that, you know, my repair plan writer, my body technician, and I sat down and clearly read on there that if you don't follow these procedures, it could affect the crash worthiness of the vehicle, the structural integrity of the vehicle. Yep. Therefore, in a subsequent accident, could affect the safety of the consumer.
Right.
So I went, well, this isn't rocket science. It isn't what we wanted to do. Right. We'd much rather, but at the end of the day, Ford didn't call us and say, hey, what do you think about these procedures?
Right, exactly.
You know,
exactly. So, but it's the way the car was designed. And I think, you know, that speaks a lot to doing what the right thing. It's about doing the right thing for the customer. And I think, you know, I'd love to have you back on to talk about that aspect too at some point. But, you know, I'm just so impressed with just your integrity and how you are committed to doing the right thing for the customer and for your employees. And I think, you know, there was a book I read years and years ago called Self-Made in America by a guy named John McCormick. I mean, this is probably like 20 years ago I read this thing, but I remember he had a philosophy in there that kind of blew my mind. He said, you know, they always say the customer's always right. And he says, that's incorrect. He goes, the employee is always right. Right. Because again, it comes back to the leader. So if they're incorrect, it really comes back to the leader. So the leader's got to train them. But if you have, you know, an employee that you can trust and that, you know, will do the right thing, the customer is going to be happy.
Yeah, 100%. You know, one of the things that's missing in our industry is we have an entire industry of body shops that are either scared of the insurance company,
right,
or ran by the insurance company, in partnership with the insurance company. And what happens is, and this is what I see in my own city, and I see because of our social media and the videos that I make, I get a lot of phone calls from technicians around the country and body shop, you know, managers. I very rarely get them from owners, because they're realistically, they're the problems. I get these technicians that go to the training. They are educated, they have ethics and morals, they want to do the right thing, but they're told to do the wrong thing in order to please an insurance company. And the challenge is this: when you have an entire staff of educated people and you don't respect them, you're not going to be able to have any kind of trust with them. You're not going to be able to conflict with them. Right. The perfect example is that Ford Explorer.
Yeah.
You know, for me to be able to take the back seat to my technician, I literally at a certain point looked at him and said, you're the expert, you tell me what needs to be done. And you don't see that in shops nowadays. You see the owner or the manager or whatever, you know, go slap them on their back and say, just get the thing done, the customer needs it in 3 days, let's go. And then you have this technician that now has no pride in his work.
All right.
You know, does what I mean, you would be blown away. Matt, you would freak out at the amount of pictures that I get from technicians in body shops doing improper repairs and having just feeling like, well, I got to feed my family and I don't know anything else to do, but my boss won't let me. You know, they want me to weld on a used quarter panel, or we're putting on a rusted rear body panel or an impact bar, or we're not measuring. You know, and again, it's all based on, well, you know, if we do it correctly, well, it's going to upset the people that are bringing work in, the insurance companies, and the technician ends up getting, you know, hit. The majority of the technicians that I have here come from other shops, and there was almost abuse therapy that we had to go through. I had to prove to them that I wasn't like the other people, that I wasn't going to ask them to cut corners, that you don't. And again, like, think about this. How effective is the team if you have to protect yourself from your own teammates?
Right.
You know, when you have to lie to your own teammate to be able to feed your family, or you have to withhold information from your own teammate, just to keep your doors open. It's not healthy at all.
Uh-huh.
And I see a lot of that as this lack of trust, a lack of respect in our industry, simply because our focus is on the wrong thing.
That's right. That's right. It's interesting. Everybody would agree that slavery is a horrible thing, yet in many ways, the workplace is like slavery, and both not
Yeah.
just to the technicians, to the shop owners that feel like they're slaves to the insurance company and may just
Yeah.
do the work because, hey, I gotta run cars through my shop, and it's the only way I
Yeah.
feel like I can do it. So,
Well,
yeah,
I actually, there's this almost predisposed mindset that to be a successful business owner, you have to step over people or step on
right.
people. I actually had we're close buddies now. He's a business owner right here in Wichita,
Mhm.
and he has a couple different businesses, and he called me one day and he was just really bummed out, and he's like, man, you know I guess I think I'm just too nice of a guy. I guess I'm just going to have to be like the rest of the people and just start stepping on my employees, da, 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 da. And I said, why don't you come down for a morning meeting? I said, I don't believe that. I think that you all can, and it's like what you said earlier, the rising, all the ships can be rise by the same tide. And I said, just come down to a morning meeting. He came down to a morning meeting and then hung out for another 3 hours asking questions. He was like, I've never seen anything like this. And I said, well, this takes years and years of dedication and a lot of hard work. But once you build it, it's a foundation you can build off of. And now we have employees coming in just simply because they hear about the healthiness that's happening in our shop, and that healthiness translate into finances, but it also translate into personal experiences and personal life.
Right.
It affects everything.
Well, the name of this podcast is Your Business, Your Life, because
Mm.
basically, in my experience working with business owners and, especially with shop owners, what happens in your life affects your business and your life, vice versa. And I just think about the legacy that you're creating for your children,
Yeah.
seeing you and your wife work in this way with people, the impact. And it's not really what you say, it's how you guys do it. And I think that's something that's really that can be really exciting. You could be creating a legacy for many, many generations in your family for years to come. I think it's awesome. Well, something happened. It looks like I lost Clay. I lost my video. But anyway, I'm really excited about having Clay on the program, and we'll have him on again because I just think there's so many topics, this idea of culture and how it affects our business and it can affect the lives of employees. I think that's important. I think about doing the right thing. There's so many areas we can go with it. So we'll have him on again here. I know he's not here, but I want to thank Clay for being on the program. And the last thanks will go out to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for listening to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. If you've not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. That way, when a new podcast comes out, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And this makes it much easier for you to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And also, if you enjoy this podcast, please give us a thumbs up and a 5-star review so that we can reach more listeners. So again, thank you so much for listening. And from all of us here at High Lift Financial, make it your best day every day. And we'll see you again next time. Take care and God bless. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of High Lift Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, DBA High Lift Financial, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state security authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.